Speaking, just housekeeping, on air. Peace, y'all. We are on air. We are live. And we are here. Today is November 4th, 2020. We wait a few seconds every time, about 30 seconds. Say hello to the people, make sure that we're there. Okay, I see eyeballs on me, so I know we're good. Coming through the ether. Hello, everybody, from every hood to every block, wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in. You could have been a lot of places today, and we really thank you for being here with us the day after the election, 2020. We know that there's a lot in your mind, there's a lot in your heart, there's a lot going on, a lot in your belly. Hopefully, we got a lot of people in this country without enough food in their bellies, without enough food in their refrigerators. And we just had an election where that was barely even on the table. So we'll hopefully be talking about that today and a whole lot more with our guest, Ahmad Daniels. He is a Vietnam era veteran who dissented and, without realizing it, began educating people on the military industrial complex. And his story is incredible. I'm not going to tell his story right here. We're going to let him tell his own story. And y'all are blessed to be here. We're blessed to be here in the space. We're thankful for the space. We know that this is occupied land that we are broadcasting from. This entire country, really, a lot of the planet is occupied at this point by the imperial forces that we are trying to take down. It sounds like an Empire Strikes Back movie, like a Star Wars movie, but it's real. Reality is a lot better than fiction these days. And a lot of people's feelings are really good and the energy is really good. The love is positive. And so that's all palpable. We can feel that. We can recognize that. And we are doing this show to take structures back and make people feel better than they have felt in the past 40 and 400 years. This is a Veterans for Peace space. This is a safe space. This is a space created for conversations to create safer spaces. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. We ask that you share this conversation with your family, with your friends. Click share right now. We ask that you share it, and that after the conversation, that you take these conversations with you into your life and that you share them with your family and with your community, because this is the only way. Only through sharing, only through honest, clear communication can we grow our community. We're trying to grow a community of love. If you're tuned into this vibration, it's because you are trying to grow a community of love, either in your home or your house or your neighborhood or your state or your country. So we have to have the conversations to do that. The conversations that are difficult, the conversations that we tell ourselves other people don't want to have. But we really all want the same things. We want safety. We want security for our families. And we just want happiness and joy, right? So I'm happy that we have Miss Natasha back with us this week. I'm happy that we have Mike James in the house, and we have Ahmad Daniels in the house. And my name is Miles Megacyph. Mental energies gather and circulate in positive harmony. Allow yours. I'm going to do a check-in real quick. I'm going to do a quick check-in because I feel good. I feel great. And I know that wherever I'm at right now is where I need to be. And there's a whole lot of love inside of me. I feel like it's welling up inside of my throat and trying to come out in sorrow, in tears, not of sorrow, but tears of joy. And composure and patience and breath are keeping me centered and stable and rooted right now. But I feel really happy. I feel really, really happy. And I just go around and take a quick temperature about how you feel or about your responses to last night's polling numbers and to the way it's looking this morning. If anybody would like to share, you're free to share. I'd love to hear from you all.
Holla, 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 holla. Beautiful sermon. Thank you, Megacyph. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. We need that in our lives. We need to pray. We need to pray and have a connection with the spiritual world in these dark days, these dark political times. Super happy to be here. Yeah, I mean, let's just go around the room. Ahmad is our guest today. Let's have Ahmad
Certainly.
check in and tell us how
Thank
you're
you.
doing today
Thank
and a
you.
little bit about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate that indeed. Coming to you live and well from Phoenix, Arizona, the hottest place in the country as far as I'm concerned, but not even hot temperature-wise, be that centigrade or Fahrenheit. It's hot because we have Mark Kelly was elected to the U.S. last night, so I'm very excited about this. Red state decided to go blue. For how long? I don't know, but he'll be the senator for at least for another 6 years as his terms run. So I'm very happy about that. All the other things are still held in the air right now. We don't know what's going to come out of Pennsylvania and all the other states, but every outcome, know that we as a people can survive it. I'm reminded of the quote by Abraham Lincoln, who said, "A nation divided among itself cannot stand." Well, America is divided. Let's see what happens in the days and weeks and months to come. Ashe.
Nice. Thank you. And Natasha, how are you today?
I'm well. I feel really good and rested. Spent the day yesterday here on the south side of Chicago as an election coordinator, essentially, from sun up. That task started at 5 a.m. and ended a little after 10. Just to, make sure that our poll, had our task completed. So, to be of service to the city in that way yesterday, and just the energy that you get from people, who were, just ready to cast their voice. It was a really good day spent with the community. And then just in terms of when I did get home and looked, and checked a few of the channels, and just kind of caught up on where things were. I mean, quite honestly, I wasn't surprised. A lot of my friends and people that I spent, years with in the military, were really disillusioned by, the choice and like where we were. But people were really excited about the down ballot, options that they had. I supported Mark Kelly. I was hoping for his win. So it's really good to hear that. And, as I just look at today and where things are, I'm hoping that we, as a people, just really see how fractured the country is. And this is an opportunity, no matter who wins, is for us to really come together. Not just, as that, just toss this, out. I don't mean in a come together in the ways that we've always just said it, without substance. I mean that this is really an opportunity, because I think the fractures are showing, politically, but there's a lot of tension that's out here and a lot of people are hurting. So when I say that I'm feeling good about where things are, that doesn't really reflect on the candidates, but I'm looking at the conversations that people are having, right? I'm looking at the, because it's hard and because it's difficult, I'm looking at what people are acknowledging and what's coming up for folks. So I'm excited about what this moment is creating. And I'm hoping that on the other side of this, no matter who makes it to 270, that the people will, start having more honest conversations so that we can start, tearing down the structures of white supremacy, and capitalism and imperialism, all of those isms that, really put a foot on our collective necks. So peace. I'm happy to be here and really looking forward to this conversation today.
I would love to see isms. I'm saying the song is that Lauryn Hill? Lauryn Hill has a song called Isms, or is it called something else? And she just goes through all the isms. She has a beautiful record. I would love to see those conversations normalized in our world, and I hope they are normalized. And Ahmad, I would like to ask you how you feel, if you feel the conversation is different now, because you dissented at a very interesting time, and your coming of age story, or I don't know if that if your coming of age story is the same as your disillusionment story with the military. But you saw a lot from the years that we talked about, 1967 to 70. You see a lot of connections between then and now. And I'm wondering if you've seen the dialogue change. You know, a lot of our leaders that people idolize and look up to were assassinated in those years. And I wonder if you feel it's more intense now, or people are more ready for something now than they were, you know, back in those pivotal years, 1967 to 1970.
Yeah. Give me some leeway in how I go about answering that. I always like to begin by first giving praise to the Creator, the one responsible for our being here, and to the ancestors, the great ones whose shoulders we all stand upon. Most recently, I listened to, again for the second time, Nicole Hannah-Jones' team, which was well done, which is something that President Trump talked about, and he needed to come up with something else. But it was a particular part there when they mentioned Eli Whitney. Now, Eli Whitney was somewhere about in grammar school and high school, and we all know he invented the cotton gin. And that was the only context I heard in. I did not know that prior to that, it would take an enslaved man or woman all day to clean 1 pound of cotton. 1 day. And that's a poor use of labor to take one person out from what he or she is doing to clean a pound of cotton. Well, with the advent of the cotton gin, they were able to clean as much as you could get. So now here you had all these white farmers on their plantations with needing more land. So where would they get? Well, they the native land. And when I don't know if you hear that school bell, when the Native Americans left, they planted more and more acreage of cotton for the enslaved to really sell. And what I also learned from that 1619 project is that there was a time in American history when the total value of all the enslaved surpassed the value of the railroads and all the businesses in the country. And you know, railroads, big business, they've always been valued a lot. But to have slavery more monetarily significant and more than all the other businesses, it just told me a lot of different things of the value, the backs, the sweat, and the tears that we dealt with in this country, how we've always been there, how we've always put them first, and America had a way of putting us last. So when I answer your question, I think it's kind of hard to compare the 60s to what's going on now. If you saw the movie Chicago 7, you had a feel for how white people were getting involved back then, because many of them were being drafted. If their parents weren't affluent and they couldn't go to Canada or to Europe or to college, they were going to be on the front line in My Lai and other places, and Vietnam also. But what I do like about now is that whites are beginning to deal with racism, white supremacy. That didn't come up a lot during the 60s. It was more or less equality. We were still on the vestiges of what King was talking about. And if anybody was talking about it, it was certainly Malcolm X. And Malcolm X at that time, by many, was the boogaboo. And he was the one that nobody wanted to hear from. It was hard to embrace. His truthfulness was something that we did not want to believe, because we did not want to believe that America was as bad as he was making it sound. And we know in retrospect, it was worse than that. It was worse. Then we had Democrats from the South, who Malcolm called Dixiecrats. Why for those Democrats left the Democratic Party and joined the Republican Party, where we find them to this very day. So when I come back to me at the age of 17, graduating from high school, and then wanting to join Corps, it was from all those years from having been socialized to believe that that would be a cool thing to do, that I would be sent off to a country that had I been asked to locate on a map, I wouldn't have known where the hell Vietnam was. And I didn't even think much about it. My older brother, who had been in Marine Corps from 59 to 63, joined, be sure to get an age guarantee. What does that mean? He said, if you you score high enough on the exam, they'll send you to aviation school to become a jet mechanic or a helicopter mechanic, and you'll be on the back lines and not in the front where everybody else is. So that made sense to me. So when I took the test, I did well enough, and they gave me an aviation guarantee. And the military doesn't guarantee much of anything. If you get in there, it's left up to them to do what they want to do with you. This boot camp, did well there, finished Camp Pendleton, Camp Lejeune rather, and now I'm in Millington, Tennessee, studying to become a jet mechanic and doing quite well, passing my tests, enjoying it, enjoying the barracks, enjoying the weekends where I'd spent hours after hours on Beale Street. And Beale Street back in Memphis in the 60s was the place to be. It was off limits to military personnel. So if you went down there, you damn sure didn't wear a uniform, and you didn't wear them funny looking military shoes either. You wore whatever shoes you brought from home. But Beale Street was just beautiful. The music, the girls, the shows, everything was just nice. Unlike the way it is now. It's so commercialized now when you go back to Beale Street. But it was during that time also that I was a Christian by upbringing, not by any real faith, but something that I just did. So I went to church on base each and every Sunday. I put on my uniform, and as I tell people, when I put on my uniform, I was cleaner than the Board of Health. You could have eaten off my shoes, and you could have sliced your bread with the creases in my pants, because that's how sharp I was. Took a lot of pride in that uniform. But one Sunday I said, let me go to the church off the base. I had seen it while going into town, and it was only like 500 yards away from the base. And I walk into the church, and the first thing I hear is, get your black ass out of here. I'm from New York City. I never knew what Jim Crow was about. True, my parents were both from North Carolina. They knew what it was about. But like many parents did during that time, they sheltered their kids from the indignities of being Black in America. And so I left the church, and I didn't know what to do. It was like I became so disillusioned in what and who I was. So something said, go to the library. And as an enlisted man, we don't go to libraries. We go to topless clubs. We have a stack of $1 bills, and you know where the $1 bills go. But this time, something told me to go to the library. So I followed obediently and picked up 3 books. Crisis in Black and White by Charles E. Silverman, Who Speaks for the Negro by Robert Penn Warren, and Richard Wright's White Man Listen. And in those books were conversations and dialogues with Malcolm and King and Abernathy and Kwame Nkrumah, all these national and international people whose names I knew nothing about. But what struck my fancy more than anything else was reading about Black participation in the military. I mean, I was in the Marine Corps, so I kind of identified. I had an affinity for those who were also in the military. And when it talked about World War I, how Blacks came back, and there were the Red Riots of 1919 when Blacks came back in uniform and they were lynched by whites. And while these Black people were still in uniform, they had just come back from Europe where they were treated with dignity and self-respect. And they come back over here with their shoulders back and their heads up. And these whites wanted to remind them of the system that Isabel Wilkerson talks about now, but we'll talk more about that a little later. So they were lynched. World War II, white people would come with a victory sign held up. Victory over fascism, victory over Hitler and Mussolini and everybody else. But Blacks always had to have a double victory. Victory over fascism abroad, over racism, white supremacy here in the States. So here I was, an entirely different war where Black people are being killed and the fighting's going on, and I'm being treated like I'm a second-class citizen. So my question is to me, am I going to be a continuation of what World War I, World War II? I mean, we could go back to the Civil War. We could go back to the American War of Independence, with Crispus Attucks being the first person killed during the American Revolution. The inequities follow line for line for line, year for year, decade for decade. So I ended up flunking out of aviation school. I became so disillusioned. I became like I didn't know who I was anymore. So now I'm at Camp Pendleton, summer of '67. And if you remember anything about the summer of '67, there were tanks rolling down the streets of Newark and Detroit and numerous other cities. And these tanks had 50 caliber machine guns mounted on the turret. If you've ever fired a 50 caliber round is about that big. That's what goes through the wall. That will go through a wall and go through your head and through your leg and go through every part. Because the tenement situation, that's how powerful a 50 round could be. So me and some other guys, we would be up in the mountains of Camp Pendleton, smoking reefer and drinking Akadama plum wine and having discussions about, why should we go to Vietnam and then have to come back and fight white people in the streets? And I said, I don't know why. They said, well, what do you think we should do? That's about 12 of us sitting around BS shooting this shit. I said, well, I think maybe we should go ask the commanding general. He's has 3 stars on his shoulder, which would make him a lieutenant general. And let's ask him why we should go to Vietnam. Now, as all of us know, there's such a thing as a chain of command. You just don't boldly and audaciously walk up to the door of a lieutenant general and ask to be admitted. You start through the chain of command with the first sergeant. So the next morning during formation, I said, First Sergeant, of us here who would like to request mass. We'd like to see the commanding general. And he said, who? And I did like that, telling people to step forward. And you had 9 or 10, I don't remember the accurate number, Marines, Black Marines. They took a step forward and he looked at them and said, if any of you take your behinds past me, I'll make sure you all go to jail for mutiny. So they took a step back. They didn't have the conviction I had. I mean, I had spent time studying. I remembered being kicked out of that white church. I had all this history behind me. They must have felt that all they had to do was say they don't want to go to Vietnam and that's it. And you're out. Oh, no, it doesn't work that way. They had volunteered just like I had. So it didn't work that way. So they took a step back and I told myself, I said, well, when the time comes, they'll give me orders. I'll flatly refuse them and they'll give me 5 years and a discharge. And I thought that was how it would play out. So as time goes by, we finish staging, which is preparation before you go to Nam. And I'm getting ready to go home on leave. And the military police come and they get me and a guy from Brooklyn named Harvey, and they take us to the commanding general. And he reads off a charge sheet that's pretty long about what these other Black Marines had said. And to put it said that he had violated a 1940 Smith Act, which made it a crime to counsel, urge, cause, and attempt to cause insubordination and refusal of duty. So to the brig we go. We're in the brig 4 months waiting for our trial. We were assigned a captain as an attorney, young guy, had never handled a case like this before. And we go to court. It's all white jury. All officers find me guilty of violating that act. And they give me 10 years. I was facing 80, 10 for each of the 8 Black Marines I had spoken to. All I was telling them, they would ask me things that, did he ever tell you not to get a haircut? Did he ever tell you to refuse an order? They wanted to gauge the impact I was having on these other Marines. Now, they gave me too much credit. I did not know that from a 20,000 view, 20,000 foot, this taking place throughout the military. You had Fort Hood. You had all these different people had these underground newspapers that were going left, right, and people were protesting in every place. There were riots held in some of the jails. I didn't know anything about that. And if white people wanted to go fight the war, that's their war. They had something to benefit for. They had something to fight for. But Black people had no damn business going over there fighting yellow people then having to come back. So I didn't know anything about that. So I'm given 10 years dishonorable discharge. And we're handcuffed, me and Harvey, and they put us on a plane, a company. Now, we didn't fly by our day, of course. They took us to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Portsmouth, New Hampshire during that time is where Navy, Marine, and Coast Guard spend long sentences. You get locked up at your own little jail, and this was Camp Pendleton, but then they send you for lengthy sentences there. And I'm there looking at 10 years. And guys are coming back from Nam for rape, murder, just doing some of the most heinous things imaginable to Vietnamese. And none of them had 10 years. I'm saying, how could you kill somebody? How could you mutilate? How could you cut off their ears? How could you stick bottles into their cavities, broken glass and everything, and you walk away with 2 years? And in some cases, 6 months and a kickback, which meant that they'd spend 6 months in jail and they're gone back to active duty. Well, I realized at that point, America knew how to deal with rape, murder, arson, because that happened so often. But they didn't know how to deal with somebody who could think. That was much more lethal to them than any AR-15 I ever put on anybody. Words, they were just frightened of that. So I knew at that point I did not want the military representing me during the appellate process. Even in jail, you have appeals. You have the CA, convening authority, then it goes to JAG, Judge Advocate General. And if the case warrants it, it goes to COMA, Court of Military Appeals, and after that, the Supreme Court. I said I didn't want them representing me during the appellate process because that would be like a Ku Klux Klan trial, and you're being represented by who? Ku Klux Klan. So I started writing people. And back in 1967, 68. And back in 68, there was no Google, there was no computer. I couldn't put into a search engine, I need legal representation for a First Amendment right. You couldn't do that. It didn't exist at that time. But what did exist in my mind was the NAACP. I wrote them. They said, sorry, we can't help you. Painstakingly writing letters, lines, line after line. I said, well, I don't know who else to write. I wrote Ebony, and they said we couldn't help you. To me, I had exhausted all my possibilities. And this one inmate said, have you written the ACLU? I said, who? The American Civil Liberties Union. You have a First Amendment case. From what I could see, what you got to lose? I wrote them, and they sent their legal director to Portsmouth, New Hampshire that next week, Melvin L. Wolf. Hippie-looking guy, long hair, and he said, we like to represent you. I said, my family cannot afford to pay what you would probably charge. They said, no, you're doing us a favor. We just want to represent you, you and Harvey. So they took the case, and they began publicizing our case. I have a scrapbook right now with articles that thick, Washington Post, New York, Amnesty International, British newspapers, Playboy did a little piece on us. Muhammad Speaks was omnipresent with their coverage. Muhammad Speaks was publishing things all the time about us. And after 2.5 years of incarceration, I finally got an honorable discharge and back pay. That experience, it helped me grow up a great deal. I take a lot of pride in that. When I go to the VA now and I see some of the old guys who were over there, they always ask me, well, what did you do during the war? I just told them that I didn't go to Vietnam, that I didn't have to go for some reason, rather than get into a long conversation. But many of them who are much younger than I am, from Afghanistan and all these other places over there, and the burden that's on them. I mean, not just physically. You could look at them physically and see that something's awry. But I always ask how their minds are, because they left something mentally over there. You don't rape and pillage and come back and be who you are. Something inside of you must be suppressed, if not obliterated, in order to do what we did to the people in Vietnam. And I think America is still paying for that. America lost the war, just like France lost the war, but it also lost the respect of a lot of people around the world. I forgot the general's name who said we're going to bomb them back to the Stone Ages, because America had the B-52s. We had all the bombs. We had all the AR-15s and every other M16s, but we didn't have the will. They had the will. And when Dr. King on April 4th, 1967 came out against the war, President Johnson knew at that point that this was it. That if King came out against the war, that was going to be it. And he stopped inviting King to the White House after that. But King had to make a moral decision that he had, and it's a rightful one to make. King didn't wet his finger and see which way the wind was blowing. That's a thermometer. King said you be a thermostat. You have to create the environment. You don't gauge it, you create it. And by him taking that unpopular stand, Senator Edward Brooks, who was the first Black U.S. Senator during the since Reconstruction, he came out against King, as did members of the NAACP, because they said, King, peace and civil rights don't mix. But King realized, they forgot that King was a minister first. Civil rights worker, yeah, but a minister first. And he said that wherever threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice anywhere. And what America was doing in Vietnam was unjust, it was evil, and it was a war that America could not have won by any way, shape, or form, because those people were fighting for their land, and they had fought against the British, they had fought against the French, rather, they fought against the Chinese, and they fought against America and won, and now they're living in a land of peace where communism, North and South, makes them comfortable, and it's fine for the rest of the world too. That was my story, and it was a good one. And I just think that people were much more, they knew what they were fighting for back in the 60s. The signs were still up in many cases. The schools were still segregated in many cases. Now there's that glimmer that everything appears to be okay. So if I could give credit to 45 or Trump for anything, it's his removing the bandage from the racism, white supremacy that exists. And I applaud Isabel Wilkerson in her new book, Caste, C-A-S-T-E, because she draws parallels between the caste system in India that exists, the caste system that took place in Germany with the Jews and all. And it explains why Black people during that great migration, 1575, when they fled Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Louisiana, going to California, Michigan, New York, Illinois, looking for a better life, they left Jim Crow only to encounter James Crow, restrictive covenants, redlining. And when people begin to ask, well, why is that so? It's a caste system. You're born into it. You can't educate yourself out of it. You can't grow out of it. It's just a caste system. And when you look at it that way, it makes much more sense and understand why we continue to be treated the way we are when we want to act outside of our caste, and people point fingers at us, or even worse, they point guns at us. So that was my story. I still love the Marine Corps, not because I'm loyal to the country, but because I was able to win. It's not very often you have Daniels versus the United States of America that the person who's opposing the comes out on top. And I earned my rights to Marines be one. I got a birthday coming up November 10th. That's the Marine Corps' birthday, and I share it with it. And my own birthday, November 15th. So I have 2 birthdays in November every year.
So you,
all right, you got to say something at the point.
No, thank you, Ahmad. I was going to ask you about that. I see you wearing the your Marine Corps cap, and
cover.
You know, it's yeah, you're wearing your, okay, so you're wearing your cover, and you still got the lingo and everything and the love for the Corps, and that's beautiful. I say Semper Fi as well. You know what I'm saying? Semper Fi. And that's, is that because you made it through the crucible? So and you carry the weight with you, like you're in a school. I'm gonna ask, like, you're in a school, right?
Yeah.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Oh, yes. I'm in a school. Can you hear me now?
What is your role, if I can ask?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
What is your role, if I can ask, in the school?
I retired from work many, many years ago, but I've learned in my 72 years, if you want to be young, hang around young people. Don't hang around old folk. So I'm around young people. As a resource officer, there are some students who are having problems with math or even reading, and they come to me and my other colleague here, and we assist them. We supplement what they're doing. We help them read, we help them with their math. And I do that 5 days a week. And I love what I'm doing. They've asked me to teach history, but I don't want to take any work home with me. So I had to tell them no. I just like leaving here and I'm gone until the next morning. Now, I'm also a cyclist and I wear my Marine Corps kit. I don't know if you know what a kit is, but it's a jersey with 3 pockets in the back, and there are shorts with pads in them. So when you sit on that little tiny weeny seat, you know, your doesn't get sore. So I also have Marine Corps kits. And what I realize, I get more respect when people come up from behind me in their vehicles. If it's another Marine, they'll blink their horn, beep their horn and say simplify, but they seem to give me a little more leeway in the street rather than ride right up on me. I have no way of proving that whatsoever, but it's in my mind that I'm getting more respect because maybe they thought I'm in love with America and I'm a Trumper or whatever the term may be. But I do wear that because I earned it. And, you know, and I love the brotherhood that I experienced and the people that I actually met. And I was on the rifle range last Saturday. I still shoot. I think we should all have guns, be it a pistol, an AR-15, a shotgun or something. Every house should have a gun. Put use to that Second Amendment. We should all have guns.
I believe my other two co-hosts definitely support that. I do as well. I don't want to speak for anybody, but I do know. So you're like, if it's my right, I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna take it. First Amendment, Second Amendment, whatever it is, and I'm gonna defend it. Not necessarily saying the Constitution is right, but here I am as an American. I'm standing in my place. I'm holding my space, and you have to honor my rights as well, right? Like you wear the hat, like recognize I'm a Marine, right?
And they get discounts. Usually, if I'm at the airport prior to what we're going through now with COVID-19, if I'm ordering a meal and I ask for the check, it comes back, somebody else paid for it, and they will have written on it, "Thank you for your service." You know, so people, you know, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that. When I go shopping, I ask them up front, "Do you give discount to vets?" Some places do, some places don't. My car dealership, where I take my car to get fixed, they knock off 15% off the price. And that's significant. Oil change, whatever it is, 15% off the price is in my pocket and not in theirs. And I have to show them my card from the VA sometimes if it's a place that I don't know and I'm there for the first time. I mean, there are some benefits from being older and being in the Marine Corps. Senior citizen benefits, getting movies a lot cheaper. You know, time. So that's all good too.
I certainly appreciate that. That's cool. It's kind of like, I like the way Huey Newton put it, and he said, well, basically what we're doing survival pending revolution. And since we're veterans, that's what we're doing. We're surviving. And if you can get that 10%, if you can get that extra 2 feet when you're riding your bike on the road, then
That's
you know,
right.
Take it. I like it. It's a strategy. It's a tactic, and I appreciate that. You know, I really liked hearing your story today, Ahmad, and I think it's great that I'm gonna put it out there. I'm glad we're not talking about the election, or at least that we haven't so far. We've spent a solid 37 minutes not talking about the election, and I appreciate that, and I think that that's useful. You know, I think what I'm thinking about, I've been doing some reading. And I've been thinking, you know, how do we actually think about what's happening in the election? And one of my big inspirations is the Black Panther Party and the writings of Huey Newton and George Jackson. And I came across this incredible quote the other day when I was looking through Blood in My Eye. And I'd like to take just a second to read like 2 paragraphs of it and do a little formal presentation. And I think that it would be a useful thing to think about. So I'll go ahead and do that if you guys don't mind. Okay, so here we go. He says, "We will never have a complete definition of fascism because it is in constant motion, showing a new face to fit any particular set of problems that arise to threaten the predominance of the traditionalist capitalist ruling class. But if one were forced for the sake of clarity to define in a word simple enough for all to understand, that would be reform. We can make our definition more precise by adding the word economic. Economic reform comes very close to a working definition of fascist motive forces. Such a definition may serve to clarify things even though it leaves a great deal unexplained. Each economic reform that perpetuates ruling class hegemony has to be disguised as a positive gain for the upthrusting masses. Disguise enters as a third stage of the emergence and development of the fascist state. The modern industrial fascist state has found it essential to disguise the opulence of the ruling class leisure existence by providing the lower classes with a mass consumer's flea market of its own. To allow a sizable portion of the new state to participate in this flea market, the ruling class has established currency controls and minimum wage laws that mask the true nature of modern fascism. reform, the closed economy is the only way for capitalism to protect and develop fascism. Okay, so that's the whole thing. That's 2 paragraphs. I think the lesson to take from that is that when we're thinking about if we're voting for Trump or Biden, that it's the same. It's the same mission. It's reform, accomplishing nothing, and ultimately the pursuit of fascism and capitalist gain and endless profit on a finite planet, infinite profit on a finite planet. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Natasha, you haven't been speaking much. I hate to call you out, but how are you doing? Yeah.
No, quite honestly, I really wanted to hear from Ahmad, and it's, just to hear his story, and then it's just, powerful, and then to see how things haven't changed so much. Similarly, I spoke out or dared to while I was on active duty, and it cost me my Master Sergeant stripe, quite honestly, and an unceremonious last final year while I was on active duty for speaking the truth. And it was, while I didn't get read, charge list, but it was how dare you, right? Speak up against, against the white racism that I was experiencing. So to just hear how this story that I talk about is not new. I'm just the newest person, or, the latest to have gone through that. And then just really to reflect on when you talked about, Vietnam, and when you go to the VA and see, I know that wasn't your question, Mike, but I was kind of just really
thinking
spun
about
off
in a whole
so
different
just let me spend
direction.
one
I
moment.
apologize if that was
No,
No,
but it's
okay.
relevant.
Okay. I'm going to come back really quick. Yeah. And then when you talk about going to the VA and seeing how the burdens of, how you can see the burdens. Quite honestly, I've been feeling like I can, I see it in other people who might not see it in themselves, quite honestly, because I feel like I'm honest about mine, right? Like, as a woman, I experienced that, and I feel like I felt it in a different way. And when I started to, talk about it and try to talk even to my, counselors about it, how no one was really prepared for a woman's, experience of being deployed and being up close to these discussions, and participating in the special operations realm that I was in, to be so close to that fight, quite honestly, chipped me off as a person, for years, even before I started talking about it. So it's real, what post 9/11 veterans are going through. And I think that's quite honestly why we see so many of our brothers and sisters not able to cope with that. And so quite honestly, Mike, to really get to your point around fascism, like my politics changed because of that, right? In 2008, I was one of those that took leave so that I can go and, stomp and campaign for my then senator from the great state of Illinois. And then by 2016, I was a completely different, I had a completely different political belief, quite honestly. So to really, and it's because I saw what was happening. I had entered under Clinton. I had, had those 8 years with Bush. And then in 2008 or 2009 through 2016, when I retired, I saw a completely different Air Force and government. And that happened under former President Obama. Biden administration. And so to see what we were participating in, to see the misinformation in the media, and to see the things that we were really doing and what the general public wasn't aware of was startling to me. So when you talk about fascism, like I understand what we're up against. And again, that's really why, my support for neither candidate, still remains so strong, despite where we are. So I'm very clear on that. And politically, or I would say apolitically, I'm hopeful that people still see this as an opportunity to resist. So,
I take.
Mike, may I comment?
I wanted to take. I
Okay,
think I
good.
can comment back to what you said, Ahmad. There's somebody in the comment section who'd love to know where you get that quote from, Mike. So if you could
Yeah,
put
that's in
comment section.
George Jackson's. It's George Jackson's "Blood in My Eye." It was written, I think, in like 1969.
Do you
Something like
have
that,
it somewhere?
87.
Do you have a link for it?
was.
It looked like
I googled. You can Google the PDF and find a couple links.
that's
Actually, and
beautiful.
we could do that.
I think the quote came to you because of what Ahmad said about how he enjoys his privileges, which are like capitalist privileges. And I kind of wonder if that muddies the water for you know, for like the message of, I don't know if you have a message of demilitarization, Ahmad. I'm curious. And if
Oh, hell yeah. Hell
okay.
yeah.
All right. And then
Yeah.
if, yeah,
I'll
and then-
comment after you.
no, and I want you to tie it into, because there's a really good comment in the section about automation and how our industry is moving. Like, we're a service industry, and our industries, our economy is moving away from that, as we can see, especially sped up by COVID-19. So like a lot of people in the next 10 years are going to lose jobs due to automation. And so then how does that even, what I'm saying, like enjoying the last vestiges of capitalism while you're opposing militarism might be diametrically opposed. I don't know. I'd love to hear your response to this.
Well, let me applaud Mike, first of all, for reading Blood in My Eye. Blood in My Eye and Soledad Brother were both written by Brother George Jackson. I remember when he was killed in 1971, what a mournful, painful day that was. And it's a damn shame that so many African-American men and women must go into the penal system to get education. George Jackson, Eldridge Cleaver, Malcolm X, you run the list, Assata Shakur, the list is long. People confinement, and they become Americans or Latino Americans. They learn about Marxism and all the other kind of stuff because they're brilliant people. But when they're out in the world, they're so chasing that darn dollar that when they get confined, they have time to sit and read and study. And George Jackson and his brother Jonathan Jackson, who was killed in an attempt to free his brother, the other people that were in the courtroom that day, that was part of the pivotal 60s. Pivotal 60s indeed. Now, I am not one that applauds the military, because if I was that damn brainwash, I would have loved to have gone to Vietnam. And initially, I did. You don't shoot a 7.62 round, that M14 at that time, and not want to see what it's like going through some. It's like training for a football game and you're on the bench the whole time. You want to get into the play. You want to get on the field. So I wanted to go to Vietnam and kill all the damn people that I could until I had that awakening. So it's the awakening when we come into reality of who we are as individuals, what our role is in America, how we're not Americans, how race, gender, sexual orientation make a difference. So I'm not for militarization. I understand that America's, first they send in the money to really change a government. If that doesn't work, they send in the missionaries, maybe not in this order, but finally they send in the Marines. They send in the military. But either way they go, they're going to have their way at the end of the day. So capitalism must be backed up by a military. You have to have countries whose labor is so cheap and who is willing to open up their doors to the crazy products that America makes to make that possible. So capitalism, an economic system where production and distribution privately owned and operated for a profit. The lack of that puts fear in a lot of people's hearts. That's why I think Ernie would have been a better president. He would have raised issues that people aren't raising now. He may not have gotten that far because it's not about who occupies the seat. It's about the system. It's about systemic change that is so hard to come about. No, not do away with the military, certainly demilitarize it the way we should demilitarize many of these police departments around the country and what they're all about. We're between a rock and a hard place, and people benefit from being quiet They benefit from getting along just to go along. But it's people like us, that pivotal few that can make a difference in getting people to think. Much like that kicked me out of that church made me think and want to read. It's the marches, it's the Ahmad Arbery and all the other situations that are causing people to think. What will keep them in the cause, however, that's something else. The flavor of the month for a whole lot of people. And they'll go back to the way they were before, if it's just cerebral. But if it touches your heart, you're going to be that way the rest of your life. It touched my heart. So this isn't something that I've done. I've been doing it since 1967. You do the math, and I'm still at it, locally and nationally, with the work I've done with the African National Congress in Ghana, Senegal, Gabon, Paris, London, France, and all these other places, widening the minds on an international scale. I support. Think locally, think globally, but act locally, and sometimes enough to be able to do the global thing as well as the local thing also.
I agree with that. I agree and think globally, act locally, think globally. I agree. As within, so without, as below, so above. You can't have all of these people pushing for progressive movements for the past 4 years so hardcore without this thing militarizing itself in the streets and pushing back.
Yeah, because it's put into place to maintain the way the system, to maintain the system. And I understand that. And they will bring out whoever they need to bring out, whatever weapons they need to bring out to keep things from really changing. This is war. If you look at it like war, you approach it in a different kind of way than if it's just some civil unrest. It's war, and you're going to have casualties. You're going to have a hell of a lot of casualties. But right now, if it's a war of the minds, Malcolm X said, once you change a philosophy, you change your thought pattern. Once you change your thought pattern, it changes your attitude. And once you change your attitude, it changes your behavior pattern. So we got to get into the heads of people first to get them to behave in a different way down the road. And each generation has to do that. I hear people say, man, I've been going to conferences for 30 years, ain't nothing changed. No, they're playing their side of the chessboard, and don't think they're just going to sit back and let you take their pawns or their knight's queen. They're fighting for their, so just as we're fighting for ours. We need more forces. We need more technology on our side, perhaps, to better get the word out. But it's coming. It's inevitable. They can't keep this bullshit going on forever. They've had a long run, and it's time for them to pass the baton on to somebody else. And that's left to us to do, to keep running, because it won't be during our generation. Capitalism is strong. It ain't going nowhere no time soon. People want it. Google and all, eBay and all them Amazon Prime trucks I see up and down the road, they're not about to go anywhere. We love comforts, and we love the fact that gas is cheap. We love the fact that we could pollute the earth and don't have to suffer the consequences as directly as other countries do. With 4% of the world's population and consume 25% of its natural resources. How can we do that except by a hell of a good army and money going to heads of state to people to suppress their own people who are in revolt?
Which is why I don't agree with you. I disagree. I respectfully disagree that capitalism is strong and that people don't want it to go anywhere. I think there is a strong contingent. There's a strong group of Americans who are proud, and I'm one of them, who are proud Americans who don't believe in capitalism. I do not believe in capitalism. I'll put it out there so y'all can really hate on me in this show. I believe in socialism. I believe that socialism is a way forward for our planet. Just the name, just the beginning of the name, social. I'm a social person, you know what I'm saying? I'm an artist. And so I believe that getting together socially and building things that are beneficial for the people, that the goods and resources that the people create benefiting the local community is a good thing. Capitalism, to me, the exploitation of resources and people for personal gain is not sustainable. I do not believe that it's healthy either. We have a fiat currency that is overinflated and only supported by the U.S. military-industrial complex. I think we're in our last days of capitalism, and that's why we're getting such a big pushback against protests for human lives, like Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ rights are basically protests for human rights, and they're pushed back against by this economic system. That's the place I think we're at. And that's why I think that our two political choices this year were both strong supporters of the military-industrial complex and even the police state. Unfortunately, when Biden says that it will not be a change of things as we know, that scares me. I don't really have a question for you. I'm just putting my 2 cents in.
This has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
There's been so many things that I've wanted to riff on sitting here listening to it that I wanted to add to. I think two points. I wanted to reinforce your experience in Vietnam, Ahmad. I fought in Iraq in 2009 and I fought in Afghanistan in 2011. And, I have nothing but regret. I mean, similar to you, I enjoyed the military in the beginning and I was good at it and I advanced quickly and I got a whole bunch of medals and I would have had a great career if I had decided to stay. But eventually I realized that war is awful and stupid and terrible. And so today I'm an anti-imperialist veteran. So it's a similar path, not only in the 70s in Vietnam or the 60s in Vietnam, but in the aughts, in the tens, as it were, as well. The other point is, we're trying to keep a positive vibe going today. And a little bit of good news I'd like to touch on is that recently, we've had some progressive successes in South America and Latin America. The country of Chile recently voted to overthrow their Pinochet-era constitution. Pinochet was established as a fascist dictator in Chile in the 70s. I can't remember what year. And the people rose up, mostly indigenous people, and decided to throw that constitution in the shit can, as it were, and start a new one. So that's very exciting. The other success we had was in Bolivia. Mainly indigenous people, once again, voted to overthrow the fascist dictatorship that was put in place last year by the CIA and the Trump administration. So that was a great success. Lot of drama there, a lot of things to follow. And then also the other thing I'd like to touch on is in Puerto Rico, they had a vote yesterday to decide if they wanted to be a state or not, and the Statehood Referendum. And so far, it looks like the election, it's looking like they might vote for statehood. But that's obviously because there's been a mass exodus of people there, and the population is smaller. And whenever there's less democracy and less people voting, the right wing tends to have victories. So it's a little sketchy. It's kind of 50-50 whether or not they're going to vote for statehood. We're hoping that they don't, because that would complete the settler colonial project in Puerto Rico and establish it as an official property of the U.S. empire. So that's my analysis. But like I said, some successes. I really went on a riff there. That was good.
No, I think it's important, Mike, for you to share that thought. And I'm, when I think about like, where are we, just as veterans, not that, and how we're having this conversation, like in our communities and sharing our global experiences. I'm curious to hear from you all, like what, in the next year or years, I'm curious to know, like, what is your work and what are you, like, what are you all looking to focus on Gentlemen, I'm really curious to hear from you all.
Ahmad, you want to take that one?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
want me to take?
I believe more than what I've been doing
Yeah.
already. I don't see any big changes. Maybe going deeper, diving deeper, and making as much love as I can with my woman, because how many years I got left, so that companionship is more important to me now, and spending more time with my great-grandchildren and my grandchildren. So all those family things are very important at this stage of the life. I've given the community so much, and I will continue to do that, but I'm also realizing in my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren, and spending time with them.
I'm doing my music in the coming days and weeks and months, and I'll take us out with a song if y'all like. If anybody else wants to share, you could share before or you could share after, if you like.
I think Mike and then Miles, you can close us out.
Cool.
You know, I was thinking I'd like to tell an experience about me interacting with my neighbors today and talking about the election real quick. I'll make it quick. So I live in Trump country. Trump flags everywhere, strictly white people, very poor white neighborhood, Trump country. And I talked to my neighbor today, and so he asked me if I vote. I said, man, it's a losing situation either way. And, you know, and he knows that. The whites know that. It's a losing situation either way, these Trump supporters, you know, and they're caught up in this ideology and bravado, you know, and they'll tell you, if you break it down real quick, if you ask them how their life's really doing, they know it's not working for them. And then the other interaction I had was I was walking down the street and I ran into three black African-American gentlemen hanging out in front of the gas station. And they asked me if I voted. And I said, no, man, I'm not with those assholes. And they're like, yes, like you're with us then. You know, like they're like, do you shoot? They asked me what I did. I was like, I'm a photographer. He said, do you want to shoot our rap video? I was like, yes. So like now, you know, that's where the people are. There's 50% of the country doesn't vote for a reason. We're not with them. Like it's an entire block. So those are my experiences with that. And yeah, this has been a great conversation, and we're getting a lot of good comments today on the Facebook. So that feels good. And I guess you can.
Well, I'm gone, y'all. I am out of here. Once he's over, I got to go ride my bike before it gets too dark. So I'll say peace to all of y'all. Peace, 2 fingers, as Spike Lee says. And I'll catch you all again soon.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Peace
We
out.
appreciate it. Safe travel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Let me do something for our brother who's getting on the road. We'll do a bike safety song. Let's do.
As you get your music ready, just, you know, want to say y'all have a great week. This was really dope. Having Ahmad on, I mean, just soaking that up was really on point. So this is one of our, I mean, I feel like we're getting great. Can we quickly talk about one quick, you know, final closing thoughts and, you know, like the real reason why we, you know, want to bring each other together on Wednesdays, every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central, 2 Pacific, is really to create space. You know, what started early summer around the uprising for global liberation and justice, particularly for Black lives that continue to be lost without justice. And really, you know, for the military who was, you know, getting prepared to accept orders to take arms against their neighbors. We asked them to stand down because we also understood what it's like to take orders and then to later suffer that moral injury. So we also created a space for peer support. So if you are a young soldier, airman, Marine, or a sailor, You know, we have a website and an email, stand down at veteransforpeace.org, where you can confidentially receive an ear from someone, you know, just general peer support. If you need someone to talk to, you are not alone. Most of us have been there. So we have folks from all of the branches that can, you know, be able to pair you with someone to have that type of conversation. And then also, you know, if you're interested, you know, in having other conversations, we're going to create space where we can have more open dialogue and live Q&A. So we're looking forward to that. We have a great November show schedule. So please come back, share this, talk about it, join Veterans for Peace if you're not already a member. And I think those are my shameless plugs. Oh, one last. Tomorrow is Veterans for Peace Truth and Recruiting Work Group. So if you are a VFP member, it's the registration is in the e-news. And for those that are not members of VFP, go to our website, veteransforpeace.org. And then what we do, and a drop down is Truth and Recruiting. And you can see a lot in where we stand on that. So Miles, you queued up to give us music. All right.
I appreciate those plugs because I didn't do them. Thank you, Miss Natasha. You know, they're important. You can laugh at me, Mike. I'm not a capitalist, man. Marketing ain't my thing. This is called Move Over. This is about bike safety. It's on an album I'm sharing tomorrow. You can go to my website, megacyph.com, and register for the event. And I'm hoping.
You know, I always think I'd like to advertise my website too. Mike at MSJP. What is my website? msjp.co. If anybody wants to see my photography, my war photography is on there as well. msjp.co. Word. Back to you, Megacyph.
For everybody riding bikes to improve our world, improve our environment, this is for you. For all the drivers who are just too greedy on the road, you know, take a moment, breathe, be patient. You know, most of these roads are like 12 feet wide, 9 feet wide on the small side. These drivers got to stop being greedy and share the space. You know what I'm saying? You need to move over. Move over. Share the lane. Give me 3 feet of space. My life's not a game. You got to move over and share the lane. I need 3 feet of space. This life's not a game. We got 2 wheels, 2 pedals, 2 feet to keep it moving. I'm bipedal. Speaking of the street needs improvement. Pedaling this movement. Music takes me everywhere. Chain keeps moving, hypnotically going there. Hermetically prepared, come with airtight flows. Air it out, helmets on, hear it brightly glows. Reflection captures light, all eyes on a spin. Make a move, make a scythe. Yo, DJs get a win. I got the right away. You gonna have respect for my bike. I'm not going away. You gonna have respect for my life. Share the lane, pass safe on the left when there's space. Don't honk, shake your fist, don't give me the stank face. Just move over and share the lane. Give me 3 feet of space. My life's not a game. Objects appear closer, bikes usually do. When they come around, maybe put your foot in the other shoe and move over. Share the lane. Give me 3 feet of space. My life's not a game. You gotta move over. Share the lane. It's only 3 feet of space. A life's not a game. Come on, move over and share the lane. I need 3 feet of space. This life's not a game. Objects appear closer, bikes usually do. When we come around, maybe put your foot in the other shoe. No, bike lanes are better for pedestrians. No more jumping like equestrians. Bike lanes are better for the drivers. Everybody needs a friendly reminder. Bike lanes are better for the cyclists. More cyclists, better the environment. So just move over and share the lane. Give up 3 feet of space. A life's not a game. I will be sharing that album tomorrow on waterspirit.org's page from Dolphin Street Sound Studios live. It's a live share. There's an interview, a live album recording /share/listening party, and a Q&A from you, the audience. So peace. Thank you for tuning in today. Tune in every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. I guess that's 2 p.m. Pacific time. We are here every week calling for National Guard and even police to stand down and stand in solidarity with the movement for Black lives and Indigenous lives. Peace and plenty, y'all. Peace and power.